Það núna held ég. Þannig að það ætti ekki að vera. Ok, velkomin á Málstofu Hagfræðistofunnar. Hjá okkur er Hrabrín Batsiev, prófessor við Institute of Agricultural Economics í Búlgaríu. Erindi hans fjallar stjórnarhætti umhverfismála í búlgörskum landbúnaði. Og eftir framsögu lýkur höfum við tíma fyrir spurningar og umræður. Og þau ykkar sem á Zoom geta bara sendt inn spurningar í chatið. En það sem þetta fer fram á ensku, þá breytum við bara núna yfir ensku. Og the session will now proceed in English. So we have our speaker, Hrabrín Batsiev, professor at the Institute of Agricultural Economics in Bulgaria. Today's topic is environmental governance in Bulgarian agriculture. And after the presentation, we'll be taking questions on Zoom, on the chat, or here. So just go ahead.
The presentation on environmental governance in Bulgarian agriculture, and of course environmental management is very important, not just for Iceland, for every country, and it's a very topical issue nowadays. So I believe most of you, I don't know why it's not working now. It was working, but now stop working. Okay.
Yeah.
Started. Thank you very much. Bulgaria territory is almost a little bit bigger than Iceland, and population, of course, is much bigger. But you see, Bulgaria is here, far east in Balkans, Iceland. So they are not so. This is shame, but they are not so good cooperation, I believe, between Bulgarian and Icelandic universities. Your colleague asked me, and businesses probably, but this is normal, simply distance. But I'm really very happy, and I thank our colleagues for this invitation, and I hope in future we have good cooperation. So just to give you some insight, agriculture is very important for Bulgarian economy, and traditionally it has been very important. For GDP, in terms of GDP, of course, is not big number, but in terms of workforce, 7%. Utilize agricultural land, 45%, and in exports, a significant share. And Bulgaria is famous in Europe and in other countries with grain export. Of course, some fruits, honey. And Bulgarian rose, this is rose, we are the biggest producer of roses. This is special rose to produce rose oil. And the most famous perfumes are produced, but these are local cosmetics, but also festivals. There is Raw Festival. Many foreigners visit from everywhere. Bulgarian yogurt is very popular. But I believe in Iceland is not popular, but in Japan, this is the major brand, Bulgarian yogurt. In Switzerland, in France, in Belgium, you can buy Bulgarian yogurt because bacteria are grown in Bulgaria, only in Bulgaria. So that's why it become popular, and Bulgarian wine is not as popular as others, but nevertheless, we are major exporter of wine. And of course, we have special cheese like a feta cheese. This is Bulgarian cheese, also a registered mark in Europe. Its taste is quite similar, and we export a lot. I will try to give some insight on evolution of eco-governance and effects on agents' behavior, some impacts on agricultural impacts on environment, and some challenges, especially related to its recent EU Green Deal. Probably you heard now everybody in Europe talking in the world talking about new challenges and challenges about Bulgarian agriculture related to this new EU Green Deal. First, environmental management, we understand, economists, because I'm an economist, this is government of activity. Preservation and improvement of activity of agents related to farm production. So we don't manage environment, we manage people's behavior and activity. Unlike some other sciences, they try to change environment, but this is focus of my attention. And this environmental governance creates a special social order. And it's quite different you'll see in Ireland or in Germany. This special order which regulate, coordinate, or stimulate agent behavior and relations. That is topic of my interest, practically. So there are major modes of governance: market, public, private, and of course hybrids. And of course institutional environment also is governed behavior of individual, between individual in nature. And according to the specific system of governance in each country, or even regions of the country, we have different type of development in environmental management. So this is like a theory. I believe everybody agree with this approach. So first I'll give you some insight about fundamental transformation. You know, Bulgaria was a communist country, and for a long time, we already discussed here, it's very difficult. Initially, we thought it will happen overnight, but it takes a lot of time to change the system of governance in society. And it affects all aspects of human life, not just agriculture. So market liberalization, privatization, institutional modernization, etc. So it took a lot of time. Then to join EU, you know, there are many rules in EU, and it's a long time it takes to adjust your legislation. Thousands of pages of legislation of EU, only for agriculture, you know, common agricultural policy. So it takes long time just to translate and to introduce in your laws. And of course, this is another matter how you implement. We'll talk later. That's not easy to translate, but different to change the rules of the game. And of course, since 2007, Bulgaria is a member of EU. And of course, we implement common agricultural, environmental, economic policies. But as you see, we implement them also in specific Bulgarian way. We call them common, but actually they are Bulgarian, sometimes Bulgarian policy, and this is true also for some other member states, not just for Bulgaria. So first, institutional modernization, thanks to EU, created a new order related to environmental governance. Of course, it introduced new rights, new restrictions, new enforcement. We have nowadays, you know, European institutions outside monitoring. Also, this is very efficient in control, and even there are sanctions if you don't follow some rules outside. So rules of the game change, but also mechanisms of implementing this rule change. And of course, there is huge public support. You know, in EU, there are huge budgets for agrarian activity, but it includes food safety, environmental security, rural development. They call it common agricultural policy, but actually it's not just agriculture, it's also environmental, rural development, etc. policy. Huge European market open for our products. So this is good for our businesses, entrepreneur, because you work for one huge market, unlimited practically, for such a small country. And of course, when rules change, we introduce private collective actions, entrepreneurships, new modes developed, and new social demands, interest group developed, they put pressure to businesses, etc. So there are fundamental changes in institutional structures. And when I was student, we didn't know about sustainability concept. Now, you know, this is a key word nowadays for businesses. So this concept in our classes, we introduce this concept. Even in economic classes, we have to always take into account other aspects, not just economics. But there are many challenges. Even nowadays, we are more than how many years already membership of Europe, 15 years. no readiness. There was no readiness, and still some rules of EU are not implemented in the right way. Sometimes even in old member countries, you know, it's very difficult to enforce equal rights, animal welfare, for instance. Very difficult to introduce even in France. I know there are some studies, not so quite enforcement is difficult or very costly or impossible. New conflicts emerge on environmental and agrarian resources between different agents. You know, before it was strictly regulated, but now different interests and conflict of interest on environmental resources. For instance, if you introduce nature, you know, Nature 2020, you have to restrict or protect territories. But some people are not happy, some businesses, because you cannot do whatever you want in this territory. And there have been multiple failures, government failures, of course, business failures, because we have to learn new rules of the game, including corruption, mismanagement. It's very difficult, you know, to implement new rules. We think it's easy, but it's not so easy. That's why farming has been fundamental changes in farming. I just give you an overview to understand some of environmental changes. You see, number of farms due to competition of EU, you know, farming in EU countries is very big industry. So many of our farms disappeared for a very short time. In average size increased, and even you see now, even it's a little bit above average, EU average. The same with livestock farms. No, livestock farms are not here, but here they show at the same time, you see, there is a huge concentration of land, very small number of farms in terms of in terms of land. Very small number of farms now own the biggest share of the land. So this average size doesn't give you idea about the situation. Now, less than 9% of farms manage 85% of utilized land. So they are quite big enterprise, very modern enterprise. So the same with livestock farms, significant decrease. Average number of farms increased, but they are far away from the average. You see here, I compare with EU and France. This is animal unit, you know, average unit of animal per farm. We are far below the European standard. This is number of farm per farm and per hectare also. But nowadays, because there will be a fundamental change of the policy related to greenhouse gas emission, this happened to be a good advantage because we don't have such high concentration of animals like in Belgium, Holland, France, you know, per hectare, because they have to still reduce the number of animals because of the new rules related to Green Deal. So environmental governance, more specifically, of course, now there are private interests, create a environmental stewardship, incentive for good environmental management, but mostly on all resources, not about other resources. Of course, they have been evolved new and effective modes of private and market-driven, like organic farming, eco-labels, eco-cooperatives, including integrated and internationally even managed new modes of governance, very interesting. But we can still say that slow evolution of collective forms, because simply high transaction costs to, you know, people with different interests, very difficult, you know, free riding problems works here very well, and our civil society is not as developed as in Iceland. And of course, you know that EU subsidies are closely related with special requirement, so-called cross-compliance or special eco schemes You don't get public subsidy if you don't keep minimum standard, environmental standard. So if you want to join, you have to comply. And even nowadays, they are become even more stricter and stricter, the standard in European Union. So this is form of public government. So major form of subsidy that our farmers get are area-based subsidy. In Europe, you know, farmers are very subsidized. But in all member states, farms get subsidies. But because Bulgaria was communist country, we didn't have our farm structure change very fast, you know. Very difficult historically to choose one moment. That's why they introduced area-based subsidy. So subsidy, common agricultural subsidy that farmers get are based on area you manage. And of course, if your farm is very big, as we saw, there are some 10,000 hectares farms, they get millions of EU subsidies. So you see, huge money goes to few hands. Subsidy per farm still are far below. And you see, it's very difficult first to compete when some farmers in old member state, you see France, how many times higher than Bulgaria, even it's below the, Bulgaria even still is below average, you see, EU level of subsidy. So very difficult when you open up market, but you have different supports. And of course, environmental management also is much more difficult when you get less support and high competitive pressure. And besides this, you see how common agricultural policy keep inefficient farms, you know, especially recent years, net income of farms without subsidy is negative. So this farm would not have existed if there was no common agricultural policy. They would have disappeared. So we still keep an efficient structure. So this is the formation of, you know, like all public intervention. Sometimes it's not good for economy, but of course, common agricultural policy also support income also. This is another goal. And you see here on the last slide that actually the EU subsidies distribution, how many percentage of payment, very small number of payment, you see the last right-hand side, go to very few beneficiaries. So most of the money, EU money, go to few hands. So some people get very rich, so maybe you have to rethink if this is the goal of common agricultural policy, to stabilize income. Actually, this is even contradictory to the goal of common agricultural policy. So now more specific, organic, this is specific market-driven form. Of course, it emerged, it started to grow, organic farming, but it's still far below the average for EU. And now you know that Green Deal put the 2030, very ambitious target, 25% EU to achieve average. Bulgaria, I believe it's very difficult for Bulgarian agriculture to reach this target. Also, percentage of organic farms is very low, livestock farm, besides bees. Now bees 1/3, because we export a lot of honey bee. So this is special organic schemes. They are, you know, this is the average for EU and for different countries. Mostly in Bulgaria, a little structure is a little bit in terms of permanent crops. It's a little bit less than EU, but others almost the same, mostly grassland and arable land. So, but there is a huge variation between different countries in organic. Just to give you insight comparing to other countries. You know this Natura framework of EU that they protect special zones. So Bulgaria, you see here, even it's higher than EU average. It's 2088, here is around 12%. Protected zone, Bulgaria is higher than average. So most land, including agricultural, is under protection. So this is an initiative, it started 20 years ago of EU, Nature 2020. It introduced specially protected zones, divide each country into zones, and in these zones, there are strict regulations how to do business, how to do farming, to protect the birds, to protect plants, biodiversity. You know, there are strict regulations. They are protected zones. And when they enter in this Natura 20, of course, they get special support, public support from EU, additional subsidy because you lose income. You keep business, but you get additional payment to compensate your income losses. Also, there are special eco schemes in EU. You get more than general standard environmental minimum standard. If you want to achieve higher standard, you get higher payment, but you have to sign special contract, 5-year contracts, public, etc., to follow the rules, and there are special control measures. You see, EU is a little bit to the same level like in Bulgaria, but you know, Austria, for instance, quite high this effect in certain countries. And this is mostly in Bulgaria, they go for this type of contract, follow land. For instance, you must sign a contract to have follow land or to special nitrogen fixing crops. They say you what kind of crops you have to plant certain period of time, and you get this payment despite income losses. So this is the structure of EU. This is a special form, public contracts. So now if you want to summarize, we can say that there are failure to overcome some AFECU problem from the past because of lack of capability, incentive, training, or very complicated procedures. Because as you know, these public contracts are not costless for farmers. You have to go first to study regulations, then to negotiate terms, to sign, control. They are associated with, and of course, strict enforcement and fine, huge transaction costs. Second problem is we don't have appropriate, adequate system of eco data. And of course, sometimes there are not proper assessments. So public or interest agent, they don't know the real picture of the situation. Now, of course, they are trying to introduce more independent assessment, data collection, but this is a problem. If you don't have information, how you can manage, even if you want to be the green farmer, how? And of course, we have informal sector, like in other sectors in agriculture, huge, I would say, informal sector, that then they don't follow any rules. They don't get subsidy, but they don't follow any rules. So they can pollute, etc. So this is about impact. You see here just pesticide footprint because EU Green Deal put some target for Europe to reduce 50% by 2030 pesticide use, 50%. So you see France, pesticide footprint per hectare and per value, I calculated, in Bulgaria. We are far below the old states. So it's easy for certain states to meet green targets. But I was in France just 1 month ago. For their farmers, it's quite difficult to introduce, despite this law, new law, because it was passed by European Parliament. Even for government, it's difficult to implement. There must be huge changes in farming practices. This is using fertilizers, another. You see, comparing to France, no, this is only in Bulgaria, but you see that there is a gradual increase, especially in certain type of chemicals. And you see why, because we change the structure of production. For instance, a lot of cereal, and they require a lot of chemical, especially nitrogen, to produce. But still comparing to other European countries, Greece is our neighbor, and France, of course, this is like a talon in Europe. We always compare because the most advanced culture. In Bulgaria, nitrogen surplus, you see, in Europe is almost balanced. So you put more nitrogen that you take. This is a huge problem because you pollute land. Most countries, they put still more, even France. The problem is to reduce nitrogen use. But in Bulgaria, we have the opposite. We put less, we take more. Of course, this is not good for the fertility of soil, because in long term, this is not sustainable. You lose quality of soil, so it must be negative. It must be, of course, balanced. And the same with phosphorus. Even you see, comparing to other countries, Bulgaria even negative. We only take out. Even farmers don't put phosphorus at all, fertilizers, because simply to save money, simple economics. So here I'll give you a few slides just to compare with other countries. Unfortunately, I don't have European statistic, doesn't give about Iceland. But this is average use of chemical fertilizers in Europe. And you see, Bulgaria is not the worst case, even it's better to most of the countries. Of course, some of the countries are quite good, or region even of the country. The darker color is, the more chemicals they use on land. So the goal is not to use nowadays a lot of chemicals, because another goal of EU is to decrease fertilizers 25% by 2030, 25%. So for many countries, very red, a very dark green would be very difficult to reduce. For Bulgaria, less difficult for certain regions. Because you see, some regions are very, because our farming is specialized in certain area, more for horticulture, another more green, another more fruits. So some certain areas are darker than others. This is soil losses, erosion. No, when you don't have right practices, you simply wind, water, take away your soil, and it goes to the wind, go to the ocean, and you lose your soil. So this is European, we have special agency, they monitor each regions in Europe, and soil losses, erosion in Bulgaria. Of course, some regions are affected quite significantly, but you see in some other countries, even is situation in Italy, you see, dark red. In Spain, some regions, in some other countries. So situation is not so, you can say comparing to EU level, because we compare everything with EU now. So not so bad, but it doesn't mean that this is not a big challenge. Soil losses. This is about pollution of ground and underground water. So you see, Bulgaria, we have serious problem, especially with groundwater pollution. When it's dark blue, its pollution is high. Percentage of water which is polluted. But comparing to some other countries, not so bad, let's say. More developed country, and this is normal. They use more chemicals, more fertilizer, pollution. You know, in Belgium, I know, because I collaborate with Belgium, with Holland. This is a huge problem for this country, pollution of water, underground and underground water. They practically cannot use. And this is loss of high value lands that I told you, they are in Natura, so-called Natura. Another name is high value land, to keep this high value. That's why I protect it. But in Europe, every year, high value land disappear because of the interest of other groups. They want to build businesses, to build residential towns, etc. And a lot of land, including in Bulgaria, every year we lose, and quite dark, you see, in Bulgaria, high value land because of this conflict of interest, but they are not for the sake, outcome is not for good environmental management. Actually, we lose environment to other businesses and activity. And to conclude, biodiversity decreasing index of birds, because we don't have for others, but more difficult for others. But you see, birds in farmland, every year we lose less and less, and maybe someday you go and you see no birds, just pictures of birds. And in this is true for other also plants and varieties, wild. But there is no statistics, unfortunately, but situation is similar. So in terms of greenhouse emission, we talk with your colleague. During communism, everything statistic is for communism. Because of transition, greenhouse emission dropped significantly because simply all industry collapsed. Activity was reduced in farming, including this only greenhouse emission from farming. And this is a little bit dark blue. This is since we joined EU. Again, greenhouse emission from farming started to increase. And of course, they are target 2030 for greenhouse emissions, in Europe to get zero until 2050 and to decrease 50% until 2030, after 9 years. So for me, it's very difficult to give answer how we'll achieve it. But anyway, we have to change this trend. Still it's upward. So we did some survey. I will not give big insight, but we tried to give some microeconomics farmers, because now agro-ecosystem services is a very popular concept. What type of agro-ecosystem services they provide? And you see mostly are for food, for etc., other for industry, but environmental related ecosystem services, very few number of farms actually participate, or they think they provide to society. Like for instance, measure for reduction of greenhouse gas emission, or measure for disease control, protection against soil erosions. So this is not high on agenda for farm managers. Even some of them, they don't know this concept. And here, because I work for governance mechanism, what type of governance mechanisms farmers, decision-making mechanisms they use for major type of agro-ecosystem services? Of course, private, collective, market, or public modes. You see, mostly, very rarely they use anything besides independently by your farm. If they have some initiative, they implement some environmental activity. Of course, there are, for few areas, you see collective with other farmers, and sometimes there are market prices, but mostly, for instance, for they are market driven, but this is agro-ecosystem services. They include production of food. It's also agro-ecosystem service. But for environmental protection services, purely, very few, modern advanced modes of governance are applied. Not like in France, you see many forms, special contracts, special organization, special initiative. In Bulgaria, still we are in the beginning of this institutional modernization driven by private and market sector. And here, percentage of farms participating in initiative for protection. You see only some state initiative, relatively more farms, around 20%, but because of the subsidy. I met many farmers, they say, I participate, not because of the environmental protection, because to get public subsidy, just to take, and then I don't care about environment, just economic benefit. But no other modern initiative that you can, maybe in Iceland or modern society in Switzerland, they have very diversified system of governance. Here how they judge about the importance of their activity, and they say mostly for your farm and for themselves. They don't think about public goods, collective goods. Very few farmers think about others. Mostly, if they have benefits for their farm, they implement. If they don't implement. And these are factors which affect mostly decision-making of farmers. And you see the biggest factor is market demand and prices. If market, there is demand and give appropriate bonuses or premium for certain products and services, they participate. And of course, participation of state and European programs. because of the huge subsidy. Simply they have to sign up, otherwise they get nothing. And if, as you saw, subsidies are a significant part of the income of farms. If they don't comply, they will not get subsidy. That's why they simply sign up. So still there are many challenges. I will just underline big differentiation between different subsectors, regions, and type of farming organization. Another great difference is with other member states. And now I'm in one group preparing one proposition, recommendation for the European Parliament. There are many challenges, not only in Bulgaria, but in other member states related to goals. They say that we cannot achieve these goals. They say they are not realistic, but they are now law. And you know, policy is leadership in Europe. They want to introduce this Green Deal. So for farming will be very difficult to reach the goals of Green Deal, but in Bulgaria particularly, but generally in other member states as well. So still there are discussions about how we will implement, because now we enter the Common Agricultural Policy framework since last year. Still they don't know what type of measures to introduce, you know, and it will take few years. And how we reach these goals? Opposition from some states, and of course there are goals related to food consumptions, very difficult to achieve with common agricultural policy. But now ambition of the European leaders is even to change the diet of Europeans, to eat less beef steaks, less McDonald's, you know, very difficult, and it's very difficult with measures of common agricultural policy to be achieved. So this is the measurement of sustainability. We did some measurement, and here we, you know, Bulgarian agriculture. I will just go through, but you see, social sustainability is still very low. You see, unsatisfactory level. Economic sustainability is at good territory. So economically, farmers are sustainable, but socially are not sustainable, and environmentally also unsatisfactory level. And of course, we have introduced now, it's very modern to talk about governance pillar, new governance pillar of sustainability. You know, UN have governance goals, etc. Now, some people consider it as another pillar of sustainability. So also governance sustainability is not so good for Bulgarian agriculture. And how we use this approach, it's here we see each area, for instance, why this environmental sustainability is low. This is different indicators I'll go through, but you can see not just general index, but also you see factors how you can improve. Insufficient application of, you know, etc. Also, why social sustainability is low. Why? Lack of family member ready to take over farm. Simply when these people die, nobody wants to be involved in farming. That's why farmers maybe economically are viable, but most of the farmer managers now are 65. After a few years, there will be no farmers. And here, why economic sustainability critical are raw profitability and maintaining increasing sales and governance sustainability farm. Here, I just summarize net income per farm, some indicator for efficiency to see big differences in terms of labor productivity in Bulgaria comparing to Europe, or income level and economic size. For instance, you know, economic size in Europe is measured by euro per farms. And you see our farms, average farms as a land, average size of land is above EU average, but in terms of income they get, income including subsidy, is still much higher in old member state and in EU comparing to Bulgaria. So still there is a big discrepancy in economy economics of farms. So it's very difficult to achieve other goals, environmental goals, when simply you don't have level playing field in Europe. And this is a big challenge for Europe. It's the same, of course, labor productivity, it gives big opportunity to increase. This is good for managers to increase productivity. When it is low, it's big opportunity. But sometimes you have to see outside, and this is value added comparing. You see productivity in terms of value added, Bulgaria is very low comparing to other EU country, more developed country or EU level value added per farm. And how this subsidy affected, you see crop sector, before EU membership, it was equal to livestock sector. But because they're area-based payment, they are area-based. So most farmers started to produce one or two profitable crops. First, because of competitive advantage of cereals, sunflower, etc., to international market, big profit, but also subsidies are area-based. So they preferred not labor-intensive, but land-intensive crop. Because simply the more land you have, the more crops, the more subsidy you get from EU. And you see now, this is very unsustainable. More than almost 70% is crop production now. So you see how all sectors, traditional sectors or sub-sectors even disappear, especially livestock sectors. Another decrease. So conclusions. So to respond to new and old challenges, our governance system is still an issue, and it's a good for us researchers to cooperate, to find a way to study and to recommend our decision makers to improve. I think especially this pure public mode that they use in EU, public subsidy, everything decided centralized way, sometime in Brussels, and even in Brussels, they want to give up this model, to give more freedom to member countries to decide how to use subsidy, not everything to be decided by Brussels. Because, you know, big diversity in conditions in Europe. And I think they are giving up this model. They give, right, okay, this is the money, you spend how better is for your farming. I think this will be the logic of changes. Very important to improve education, because everything starts here in the university classroom. Because we have very good young managers, you know, they introduce graduate university or study abroad, they come introduce very modern forms, permaculture, you know, very modern biodynamics, you know. Education is very important to change, and sometimes old professors like me, they cannot introduce the changes. Sometimes generation has to be changed. We have to use more interdisciplinary research to understand, sometimes even to understand economics or environmental management. Still, our research in Bulgaria, environmentalists study just environmental aspect, economists study just economics, socials, and we see the picture. Sometimes we have to work together to understand how to change the system, but together, interdisciplinary, including, of course, international. And to focus on good governance, that's why I told you now we are working on good governance, because this is the key. Good governance. Otherwise, you can introduce new law, new reforms on paper. We are very good Bulgarian, by the way. Oh, develop a program for biodiversity. Our staff make perfect program. But to change the system of governance, now 30 years, maybe it will last 30 more years, very difficult. And sometimes we have to find local solutions. So I told you that Bulgaria is famous with tourism also, like Iceland. We have very beautiful beaches, and we receive, Bulgaria is 7 million, we receive more than 8-10 million tourists every year, mostly for beaches, for mountains, for ski, so also beautiful nature like Iceland. So if you come, you can see, enjoy. And of course, tourism is a very big industry in Bulgaria, around 20% of GDP related. And we also have some historical places here. This is the capital. And this tall building in the middle, it was the Communist Party building. And on the top, there was a red star. First, but after communist collapse, like in Kremlin, they removed the star. But anyway, buildings stay. This is our parliament, old building of the parliament. This is big church. We are Orthodox Christian, but also Christian. But we also have other religion. We have Muslims, we have Jewish, we are mixed, Balkans, we are mixed. We have some beautiful places, historical places from Roman type. This is from Thracian Trove, one of the oldest civilizations in Europe, Thracian. Maybe you heard, but they didn't have writing languages. Only we learn from ancient Greek about them, but they were very advanced. Before Bulgarian and Slavic came, there was Thracian. And you know Spartacus. Spartacus, he was Thracian slave. They were very good fighters. So they had such tradition. They bury like in pyramids. When a husband died, they bury him, put everything inside, his dog, his horse, for afterlife. So there are some tombs interesting. And of course, we have our Bulgarian alphabet. When I entered yesterday, and he asked me European digital certificate, but it's written Bulgarian and Latin. And he said, what is, and this official language now in EU, they use Bulgarian alphabet. And in some countries, like other Slavic countries, like Russia, etc., they use it also. But two Bulgarians created this alphabet, Cyrill and Methodic. That's why they call it Cyrillic. Now, even I visited Mongolia, they use in Mongolia. This is not Slavic language, but Russian, they occupied Mongolia. Instead, they introduced Slavic. It was Russian alphabet. And I was surprised that Bulgarian alphabet they use in Mongolia, which language is totally different from Bulgarian. So this is Bulgarian contribution. If you have any question, I'll be very happy to hear first your feedback. And if you are interested in anything about economy, about agriculture, or any questions, I'll be happy to give answer. It's very difficult, but I try just to give you an insight. Very difficult for such a short time to present, but anyway, I hope in the future we'll extend our cooperation. Thank you very much. So if you have any question.
Well, I understand and I agree with your perception that this 2030 goal is completely unrealistic. And how can we awake the politicians to realize this goal?
This is a very good question. To be honest, I don't have any answer. Now my PhD student, I have a PhD student, she used to, because we also have not regular students. But we have some students, they work in government businesses, they want to study distance. And she became our representative in Brussels. She negotiates now, each country in agriculture. They have like not ambassador, they call them ministers there. So she's such a person. I asked her this question. Tell me, because we have been involved Research Institute in developing a new strategic plan before Green Deal, but no measures related to Green Deal. And suddenly Green Deal appeared because they decided, leaders, introduced this target. They put even targets, specific targets, very ambitious. And I asked her just this summer, tell me what will happen. And she told me, we don't know, even in Brussels, because first there are strong oppositions from member states. I told you, I visited France. I asked Pierre Dupras, he's the leader of this project. He said, next year there is a presidential election. Our president doesn't want to introduce any changes until next year. But next year is 22, How you'll reach, it takes time. first you have to agree on measures to introduce. It takes time to get effect. So time is very short. I believe also in some other countries like Denmark, Holland, Belgium, they have very strong farming, especially livestock. And very difficult, technically impossible to reach this deal. And sometimes politically impossible. Because, you know, politicians, they want to be re-elected, local politicians. So I cannot give you answer. I just try to give you insight that in Bulgaria, in certain area will be easier for us. But I don't say that it will happen. Because simply still in Brussels, they don't know, they say target. For instance, 50% reduction of pesticides. But there is no clarity. This is EU average. How will distribute this 50 country between member states? Some country will get higher. For instance, higher polluter will reduce more or equally. Second, between different subsectors. Equally will affect all subsectors, you see, or certain sectors which are not polluting now will not be affected. Also, a certain type of farms. We have very big farms, you know, they can bear some cost. There are some millions they get subsidy on. And there are businesses, they drive very luxurious cars, you know, they can afford to pay the cost. Equally, or we'll say some farmers will take these measures and others will relax because some farmers, they will simply go out of business. You know, this is a huge social issue. You know, so I cannot tell you. For me, this is a big question now, but I don't think that we'll reach in agriculture in Bulgaria or even in most of EU countries, EU Green Deal goals. I don't think we'll reach. And this, my students, I ask her, this is informal, of course. She didn't talk about, she doesn't talk for government. This is her personal opinion. She thinks that maybe now we will not do anything, just statements in Europe. But for next programming period, from 31 to 37, they will introduce some specific measures. This is her opinion, and maybe this is more realistic that will happen, at least for some countries or many countries. I'm sorry, I cannot give you more precise answer, but you know, sometime in Europe, you know, politics is more important than economics or environment. Despite, how to say, despite good goals, good ambitions, very difficult to implement.
I was looking at the productivity in agriculture in Bulgaria. It is very low.
Very low.
Is there lack of equipment or what is the main explanation for the low?
This is first. This is average.
Yeah.
We have certain farms, certain subsectors, very high, even higher productivity, very modern. Even I have some visitors, even livestock farms, some livestock professors from Belgium. They say very modern. They were surprised to see because they see these figures. Oh, they're surprised that they are such a modern farm. But this is average first. Average doesn't tell you about this. But generally, productivity is low. First, because resources are very low in Bulgaria, low costly. Rent price, labor, at least they have been. Labor costs, etc. So they don't want to increase because entrepreneur, they make anyway profit. So I have to put more investment to get more productivity just to say I am more, you know, because productivity increase, but your margin decrease. So they maximize their profit. So they are not interested generally to maximize productivity. Secondly, our statistics and this is European statistics, it's not so, let's be honest, it's not so precise. Because sometimes I find in the statistic, even in European statistic, things that I cannot find in Bulgaria, about Bulgaria. So sometimes they ask something from Brussels, and our officials, you know, they want to be very excellent students. They give anything they ask, but sometimes it doesn't reflect the reality. But this is true, and it's very difficult to explain with traditional neoclassical economics why resources, you know, when productivity is low, all resources and investment from Europe must come to Bulgaria and to, you know, how market work. So as a new institutional economics, the answer is just one, high transaction cost. This is the only reason why we have such differentiation in productivity between different countries and between different subsectors in the country. High transaction cost of moving resources from one farm to another, one subsector to another. All type of transaction costs to implement rules, to enforce rules, etc. Negotiate, etc. But we have a good examples of entrepreneurs. Initially, many Bulgarians, you asked me this question, why they keep price. Many Bulgarians thought when we join European Union, suddenly land price will become very high in Bulgaria. But it doesn't work like this. All Europeans come and buy land in Bulgaria. They prefer to stay in Holland, low productivity, high resources, but to do business in Holland, not to come to use cheap resources in Bulgaria because other institutional restrictions or high transaction costs to do business in Bulgaria. But there are good examples of such entrepreneurs. And of course, when market develop, when institutional environment works well, standard court system work well, and contracts are enforced, initially this is like a long term, it will equalize. But you see, 30 years is not 1-2 years. So obviously, only market and private contract don't govern. There are other reasons, other mechanisms. I mean, formal contracts. Sometimes they are informal contracts that we don't learn from them from statistics or from media. And I gave you this example in one industry. Actually, wine industry is very important for Bulgaria, and statistics show European that there is a highly competitive industry in Bulgaria. But our study, even we cannot publish this study because there is no data. We just make interview, but we found out that all these 300 winery companies, independent, they are governed by 4 holdings. We call them holdings because these are property managers who manage different industries, you know, banking, insurance, and they acquire ownership and even govern wine industry. And only 4 govern in Bulgaria. Maybe even between them, you know, a short number competition, even you can, it's like a cartel. You can always get, and when you go to prices in the market, you see all wine the same price, no competition. Even higher price, maybe monopoly price, because easy to enforce higher price when you are cartel. So sometimes statistics doesn't show my bottom line. Is that information, I don't believe always statistic I see. And maybe I don't know in Iceland, maybe it's not the case, but in Bulgaria, this is the case.
Well, I know some people that don't believe it.
Just when some foreigners come, because I used to work with many officials, even World Bank, EU, they come and know statistics and they believe. I tried them to tell them that, okay, let's go to see one manager to hear from him. Don't believe everything one official tell you in the ministry. Because the picture is quite different. So there are many reasons, but I think if you think like economists, just one answer, transaction costs. If transaction costs are 0 in this theorem, then resources will go to the best use. But when they are high, they prevent otherwise efficient exchange, you know, or even block efficient exchange for all sides. So this is my answer. Very interesting. Thank you very much. It has been a great pleasure, and I hope that we'll maybe in future we'll extend our cooperation, and you manage to come with your colleagues, with your students, some study visit to visit some nice places, also to have good time, but also to learn about economics, because there are things that you cannot see in Iceland, in our economics, quite different. So this is for economists. This is exciting to study new modes of governance, I think, to see new forms. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to take a picture of you, but I think you need to open that phone again.
You can take all of us one picture together. All of us one picture.
Yeah.